morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome once more to another video podcast of PNTLIVE, brought to you by PNTLIVE.net. I'm your hostess, Alexandra Mayers. Now we're going to go ahead and get into part 2 of my earlier podcast, which revolved around an adult actress and an extremely talented writer known as Vera King. I highly suggest actually that you, my viewers, view my previous podcast over on PNTLIVE.net prior to watching this podcast so that you can familiarize yourself with Vera King's situation and her story. I also suggest that you read her story in its entirety over on MikeSouth.com. The headline is Vera King Tells Her Nightmare of Working with Nexxxt Level. Now, in this podcast, I'm just going to read some select excerpts from her story, and I'm going to provide a bit of commentary on what I read. But make sure that you do follow Vera on her Twitter account at Vera King XXX. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and read what's posted on Porn News Today in regards to Vera King's article. And I highly suggest that all of you out there read this for yourself. And if there's a young at-risk woman in your life, I suggest that you do share this podcast with her. Now, before I get started, I do want to warn anyone out there who is a very sensitive person. This particular podcast may trigger you because Vera is a very good writer and she goes into extreme detail in regards to what happened to her physically and emotionally when it comes to certain abusive situations that she encountered upon her entrance into the adult entertainment industry. So this is your one and only trigger warning. If you are a very sensitive and incredibly empathetic person, this podcast may not be for you. Again, over on Porn News Today, you can find the excerpts that I'm going to share with all of you under the headline, The Porn Star Talent Agency, Nexxxt Level, that represents Stormy Daniels and 2 of the women who spoke out against Derek Hay to the California Labor Board sounds just as horrible as ATMLA and LA Direct models. It's rather interesting that the testimony below, written by an adult actress known as Vera King, popped up on MikeSouth.com, a blog which is controlled by the Luxury Companion. But if it's accurate and truthful, without a doubt, Nexxxt Level Talent Agency is an operation to avoid, just as ATMLA and LA Direct models are, in the opinion of the Porn News Today team at least. It will be interesting to see if Stormy Daniels, Zoe Sparks, and Gia Milana, formerly Shay Evans, remain with Nexxxt Level, as the events outlined in the excerpts below from Vera's testimony are horrific. In fact, if you're easily triggered, you should not read the excerpts below. The 2 men, let's call them Jekyll and Hyde, laid on the agent charm. I've decided to change some names of people and places because, spoiler alert, I'm still an active performer in the industry. The stories, however, are all true to my experiences. Jekyll was tall and bearded and would have been imposing like a bouncer if it wasn't for his cuddly teddy bear jollity. Hyde, on the other hand, was thin and tall with a booming voice he clearly was enamored of. Together, they told me, had over 40 years of experience in the adult entertainment industry. Aside from working as agents, they were also award-winning directors and performers. That first meeting was going very well, so they invited me back to their office, which was actually Hyde's apartment at the time, for the next step. Eventually, they said, you're going to have to take off all your clothes. So why not speed up the process? It was time to put up or shut up. Was I ready to cross the line from writer to sex worker? Turns out I was. I mustered the courage to drive to Hyde's apartment in Woodland Hills. They worked from their apartments to avoid overhead costs, they explained. They closed the curtains and asked me to undress. As I stood naked before them, they immediately started assessing my body. Great stomach, toned, etc. But apparently I needed to do more squats. The not particularly fit Hyde said, "I want your ass as toned as a 15-year-old gymnast." Men who watch porn, they explained, preferred feminine attributes like long hair and a tight ass. I want your ass so tight you could flip a coin off it. The next day, Hyde texted me and asked me to drive to his apartment to further discuss things. When I arrived, I realized he was alone and his tone had shifted from professional to personal. Hyde spoke longingly about his own days as a performer. Then he said he was worried about me because I seemed sweet and submissive, while a successful porn star should be more dominant to avoid getting taken advantage of. However, he added, he personally enjoyed a natural submissive and then proceeded to kiss me. Let me stop right there. So many things are red flags in what I just read. First off, I wonder if this Hyde character has ephebophile proclivities, because for him to be relating the ideal of a 15-year-old to a woman who's getting into the adult entertainment industry is so wrong on so many levels. But just the fact that this individual proceeded to kiss her, that crosses the line right there from professional into the realm of sexual harassment. So this agency is definitely one that I would stay away from, but allow me to continue. I froze. Had I really stepped into the old casting couch cliche right there in a nondescript 2-bedroom apartment in the valley? At least in the made-up casting couch porn scenes, the girls are getting the regular rate. I hadn't even signed their contract yet. I told him that I needed more time to think, and he walked me to the door. Later that evening, when I was walking my dog, Hyde texted me, "When we were together, did you wonder if I was going to kiss you?" I couldn't tell if he was attempting to be romantic or if he was gaslighting me. "I wasn't expecting it," I texted back cautiously. "I don't want to complicate anything right now." It was true. I didn't know how to respond without jeopardizing potential job opportunities. I had, of course, wondered if I was going to have to suck agent dick in order to get work. Duh. But once I was confronted with the reality, I was unsure how to proceed. Quote, "Don't create stories in your mind that have nothing to do with the reality that you live in," he replied. Okay, now it was gaslighting. "I want to keep things professional," I wrote back. "No rush here. If we watch porn together, that will be fun." So that's the end of the first excerpt. Because I wasn't getting booked, Jekyll's fiance suggested I take a job dancing topless at a club in the valley. I had never been topless in a room full of strangers who I had to charm into tipping me before. I was now experiencing a second kind of sex work, swaying my hips and breast at a grungy titty bar in Winnetka for crumpled up dollar bills. Hyde, who continued being passive aggressive towards me while not getting me shoots, kept theorizing that I wasn't made for the job and that I would eventually find a man to take care of me and quit porn. Even though I received positive feedback from fans and directors, my agents barely got me one scene a month. Sometimes, Hyde would book me for a job and they'd mysteriously cancel. A casting director told me that when he requested to book me, Hyde had offered him his girlfriend instead. To make ends meet, I poured at a winery on the weekends. It sounds to me in this excerpt that these two agents actually had the agenda of recruiting her from the start for wherever or whatever this topless club was. And it also sounds like from the start they had the intention of trying to pimp her to potential sugar daddies, considering what they said in regards to her finding a man to take care of her. So now I'll continue to the third excerpt. Hyde, who by now was single-handedly running the agency because Jekyll's fiance wanted them to start a family, made me an offer that I was too broke to refuse. Legal Porno is a Europe-based brand that shoots in Prague. They are known for hiring U.S. talent, flying them over, and paying high rates if the talent explicitly agrees to extreme sexual stunts, often involving degradation. Lexi, said Hyde. I was still Lexi then. That was her previous stage name. It's 3 anal scenes, but you have to agree to at least try double anal for one of them. He told me I would make $10,000 and that the opportunity will lead to more work and put me on the map. Let's face it, there is no other company that is going to offer you this amount of money for your first anal. No company in the Valley cares about MILF's first anal, Hyde scoffed. So at this point, this particular agent has decided to ship this young woman overseas to work. Women in America, please do not allow anyone to talk you into leaving the United States to work in the adult entertainment industry. 9 out of 10 times, it's going to end up being an instance of sex trafficking, and you may not even be able to return to the United States. You may end up dead, okay? Now, these next excerpts are going to be pretty intense, so I'm just going to go through them. We drove for an hour or two into the countryside, listening to Madonna songs and hits from the early 2000s. We arrived at an industrial building in a 1-street, 1-grocery store rural town with no English speakers besides one gentleman working for Legal Porno, which appeared to be the town's largest employer. I was led up 3 flights of stairs to a room with bunk beds and a single window with a view of the parking lot. The hardwood floors were covered with dirty laundry, monster-sized dildos, and enemas. The shower looked like it had never been scrubbed. The top bunk was bare, and the driver searched for clean sheets. Afterward, he asked me if I wanted to have sex with him, and I replied no. My dream European vacation was resembling more the beginning of a Blumhouse horror movie or an early Eli Roth film. My host owned a washer but no dryer or air conditioner. I returned home from my trip covered in bites from what I hope were bed bugs. This was worse than camp. It was anal boot camp. Turns out the Czech August is hot and humid in the day and cold at night. My American roommate, let's call her Angel, and I were lucky to have a private shower. The 2 European models, who were at Legal Porno's version of a bed and breakfast, had to use the communal showers. I asked the other performers and makeup artists who wiped down the furniture or cleaned up after the scenes. they just laughed. That first night, my agents texted me that my first scene would be with DJ, a European performer I had never met, and the director, I will call him Elaine, who spoke no English. I introduced myself to DJ the night before our scene and told him I was brand new to anal and to please be gentle. Consent in porn should be negotiated clearly, but isolated in an industrial building somewhere outside of Prague, there was a language barrier on top of a cultural barrier. I stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling. The guys slept downstairs, and Angel told me to keep the door locked at night. When I woke up the next morning, I noticed that the male performers were walking around naked. One nude male performer I had never met before pushed me into the wardrobe closet and tried forcing my head down. I just pushed him off me and went on to my scene. Director Elaine didn't speak English, and compared to US directors, had no idea how to do his job. No one on set speaks English, Angel had warned me. You have to stick up for yourself. DJ wore a tribal necklace and jewelry around his wrist and was peculiarly obsessed about me being clean. He weirdly insisted on using his penis to test that my butt was spotless before the scene. Angel had warned me that the male performers here shot up their cocks, and it wasn't like in the States. This was the first time I had heard this term. DJ injected his penis with some kind of substance to make himself rock hard, and while he was not gentle as I had requested, it was okay. I had survived my first legal porno anal scene. The DP was supposed to be a 45-minute uncut shot, but it ended up lasting over 5 hours. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. If you are a female porn star or a male porn star, and you ever find yourself in the predicament that Vera King outlines in this particular passage that I'm about to read, walk off the set. No amount of money is worth what she outlines here. An increasingly frustrated DJ became violent. After I tried to tell him I would not relent to anal sex off camera because I was sore, he kicked a water bottle across the room, then went downstairs and hit a punching bag until he was drenched in sweat. He paced up and down the stairs, sweating, huffing, and puffing. I was terrified and exhausted from hours of on and off anal penetration. After taking a 20-minute shower while we sat on set waiting for him, DJ returned. He said he could only perform if the sex was anal. He said that it was my fault there was no chemistry. I wanted it to be over, and Elaine told me to do what DJ said, and then we could finish the scene. It went on and on. If I grimaced in pain, then Elaine would stop shooting and tell me to smile. 10 more minutes, he kept saying. I couldn't feel anything. I texted my agents that the shoot had no end in sight, but received no reply until the next day. So these agents sent this girl overseas. She texted them that she was in a dangerous situation that by all means was not right or professional or ethical in any way, shape, or form, and they didn't get back in contact with her until the next day. And these are supposed to be the men who are representing Stormy Daniels? Really? Finally, after receiving a pair of injections in each side of his penis, DJ was finally ready to finish. He ejaculated in my ass without pulling out, and the director told me to push it out and lick it up. I did what he said to finish the goddamn scene. Afterward, I sat on the floor of the shower and cried. This is not what the pornography industry should be. This is what myself and another blogger decided to term abusography. This actually sounds a lot like an American studio that I've heard of known as D&D Media, aka Ghetto Gaggers. If this is the kind of content that agents are sending their talent to, then the agents need to make it clear to the talent that they will not be shooting pornography, but they will be shooting abusography. Because quite a few new men and women to the industry, I know for a fact, would not be okay with shooting abusography. A scene that's degrading is not necessarily a scene that's abusive. So I'm just going to continue now. I thought if I could pretend everything was fine, then I could just move on with my life. After I landed, I pretended nothing had happened. I told anyone who asked me about the trip that I was fine. My physical injuries didn't become apparent to me until a few days later. I felt bruised inside. I was bleeding with my bowel movements, so I went to urgent care. The doctors inserted a small camera inside me and found my rectum was infected. Treating it was another ordeal, more painful than anything I had experienced on set. I'm going to stop right there. I think from some of what Vera King wrote in regards to her experiences in Prague and on set, I think that her mind, just out of self-preservation, numbed her body naturally. This girl was incredibly traumatized. I kind of think that she should sue these agents because this is ridiculous. I developed a purple blistering rash on my elbows, knuckles, and knees, and the doctors called it a textbook allergic reaction to the antibiotic doxycycline. Psychologically, the toll was also great. The experience re-triggered my panic attacks. I awoke at night soaked in sweat. And here's the last excerpt I'm going to share. And again, you can read this in its entirety over on MikeSouth.com. Ah, the money. When I returned, the promised $10,000 had mysteriously turned into $4,800. Legal Porno had paid Jekyll and Hyde $6,600, and they had given me less than half of what I had been offered initially after subtracting agency fees. Hyde, gaslighting again, said that he never promised me $10,000. I told him that he intentionally sent me into a high-risk situation and misled me. Hyde kept blaming me for the shit show scenario in the Czech Republic. He insisted it was just business and I wasn't even qualified for the kiddie pool since I was being a baby and that I lacked drive to thrive in the industry. I wanted to tell Hyde to take 2 dicks up his ass.